To our viewers and listeners, welcome. This debate is presented by City Club of Corvallis and the Corvallis Advocate. City Club of Corvallis is a volunteer-run nonprofit organization that seeks to present a diversity of viewpoints and constructive dialogue. The Advocate offers fresh daily hyperlocal news for Corvallis, town halls and debates, and an extensive weekly events calendar. You can support debates like these with a subscription to The Advocate, which has options at either $10 or $15 monthly. I am Steve Schultz of the Corvallis Advocate, and co-moderating with me is Helen Higgins, former Vice President of City Club of Corvallis. We want to thank our candidates this evening, Christopher Blacker, Sami Al-Abdrabbuh, and Charlotte Willer, for their participation in this debate. Helen.
All right, good evening, everybody. To get us started, I'd like to ask each of you to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for school board. So you'll have about 30 seconds, and I'd like to start with Chris.
Hi, my name is Chris Blacker. I'm a father in the district. My sons are in first and third grade, and I'm running for the board because I believe our priorities are not aligning with what we've been talking about. We talk a lot about equity and excellence. I think we're falling short on both of those, and I think we can do a lot better. And I have some ideas on how to do that, and I'd like to share those with the audience and with other folks running. Even if I don't win, I'd like these ideas to keep going so that we can be better as a community.
All right, thank you, Chris. Charlotte.
Yeah, hi, my name is Charlotte Willer. I'm a graduate of the Corvallis School District, and I have two kids that are in the school district. And I have watched over the years as parent confidence has really fallen. And this has concerned me more and more, especially with our current administration and the attack on public schools. Gosh, let's see. So I think now is really the time to switch course for our school district, build confidence in our parents, and provide an education in Corvallis that drives families here rather than drives them away.
Okay, thank you. And Sami.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you to the City Club and the Corvallis Advocate for hosting this important debate and discussion that we're going to have today. My name is Dr. Sami Al-Abdrabbuh, and I started serving Corvallis School District as a budget committee, and then shortly after appointed into the school board, elected twice. So I've been serving since 2017 on the school board. And I've had the honor and the responsibility to be among 7 school board members who are shepherding the responsibility of educating every child in Corvallis. So why am I running? When I was young, I had challenges, and my grandmother believed that the opportunity in life depends on education, and she gave me that opportunity, and not only myself. Before me, she gave it to every child in her household, in her community, in her neighborhood. She ensured that there is a school set up for the kids to have an opportunity to attain their education, and no matter their gender at the time, made sure that she can make them graduate high school. My grandmother, her formal education stopped at 6th grade. And I know what it means when our children don't have that opportunity. I'm running to make sure that opportunity continues to be there, no matter your zip code, no matter which neighborhood you live in, no matter the circumstances, there is an opportunity for you to succeed. So I really look forward to share with you not only the responsibilities and the accomplishments that the school district have done over the course of my tenure and the last 8 years, but also the challenges that we face and the responsibilities of the school board to really accomplish them. And I want to share with that 2 disclaimers if I have the time for that. Disclaimer number 1, we have 7 school board members, and I'm the only one in a contested race. So I have to speak on my own behalf, and I will make sure to distinguish my own opinions, but I have perspectives from what the board is doing. And the second disclosure I want to make sure is clear is that this election is about not where the board is headed only, but also on the decision that the voters need to make. Should I continue serving the school board, or shall one of my colleagues on the screen replace me and serve instead of me on the school board? So I look forward for this discussion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sami. All right, we're going to move into the first question. So many of our audience members are asking about the declining school enrollment and the district's budget. What are your thoughts on this decline, and how would you approach the problem? And how do you see this impacting the budget and also school facilities? And we'll start with Charlotte.
Great. Okay, so this is a huge concern for me. I have noticed over the last several years within the schools that my children attend that students were leaving at a fast rate. I am also a real estate broker, and so I deal with people moving to Corvallis, trying to find affordable housing. So I understand that that is definitely an impact, but I do not think it's the driving factor of why we have decreased enrollment. What I see is happening is parents are not feeling that their kids are getting their needs met in our public schools, and they are then moving those kids outside of the district. This is very concerning to me, and this is something that is affecting me personally. We decided to pull our 4th grader out of our neighborhood school in December and move her to a private school where she could have her needs met. And upon arriving at this school, I realized there was a large number of students that she had gone to the neighborhood school with that were now at this private school. So if we want to talk about population, Corvallis population has increased a small amount over the last 5 years. The Corvallis School District has lost about 12.5% of its student body, where private schools such as CNEM and Ashbrook have increased their population by 20 and 35%. And I feel that this is a huge indicator that we are not meeting the needs of our stakeholders, and that needs to be addressed. I feel that the school board and our superintendent don't take it very seriously. When I was in 8th grade, my parents moved to Corvallis specifically for the school system that was here. And it has slowly declined over time. And so we can choose to be inspirational and drive people to our schools, or we can continue on the course that we're currently going on, and we're going to lose more and more students.
Great, thank you. All right, Sami, I'd like you to respond next, please.
Yeah, thank you. The question is, what do we think is the declining enrollment is attributed to? And I'm going to lean in on the facts, on the data. The Corvallis School District had a community meeting where we shared the facts, the numbers, and I want to really just counter some of the misinformation or misrepresentation in the numbers. Percentages matter, but when you talk about a school district of 8,000, that encompasses every child, including those whose parents cannot afford to go to a private school, those who are struggling with housing security. You cannot compare it to the percentage of increase in a private school that has a capacity of a fraction. So to answer the question, our declining enrollment is attributed and correlated with very high causality because of housing affordability. Since 2017, we're declining in our enrollment, and we are headed toward historic lows where the enrollment is going to soon be as close as it is when Corvallis School District incorporated back in the 50s, late 50s. So that's really the bottom line of it. If you see the median income of our families, and if you see the housing prices for single family housing, it just tells you the story. But more than that, I want to really lean in on the expertise of everybody in this room. I do have the expertise of speaking with people on their doors and hearing from them what is going on. And people are moving from this town because they cannot afford it, or even deciding not to have children or delay having children because of affordability. Corvallis is the highest rent burden community in the whole state, more than Portland, the highest rent burden. So not only for homeowners, but for rentals. We need to really address that as a root cause that is really making it hard for us to allow families with children to continue to be here. We want them to continue to be here. So that's number one. Number two, I want to really make sure that I address that trust in our school system. Corvallis champions the children in many ways that are unique and better than many places if you go around Oregon or even the country. And I will draw some examples as we speak today. But really, I want to make sure that we distinguish that from why the enrollment is going down, unless there's very clear indicator from surveys or from data that we lost the trust of our families. Our schools, our public schools continues to be the beacons of our communities. And I have to be very clear, I'm running for the Public Education School Board of Education. And I'll continue to advocate for it, celebrate it, and also defend it, but also hold it accountable to do better. And I promise you, we're going to do all of these things together.
Great. Thank you, Sami. Chris.
Thank you for the question. I think, as Charlotte said, this is one of the big issues we've been debating in this community. And the school board's been talking about housing for a couple of years now. Last year, that was the main issue. And let's talk about housing. You know, we haven't extended the urban growth boundary. And as a real estate agent, I assume Charlotte could talk about this a lot better than I can. But the idea of infilling and building up to kind of make it more dense and more urbanized is an idea. But the idea that that's going to bring in more families, I think, is short-sighted. Most families that can afford Corvallis cost of living do not want to live in a duplex. They don't want to live in a townhouse. They want to live in a house with a yard. And I know that that's not maybe always aligns with our progressive values currently, but I think we have to realize that if people can't afford to live here, then we need to build more houses. Now, that to me is an interesting argument, but I don't know what it has to do with the school board. I think that's the planning commission, that's the city. We can't make people buy houses or build more houses, make builders build more houses. And looking at the current economic environment, if you look at housing, look at the interest rates, look at the tariffs, the idea that we're going to build a bunch of affordable housing that's going to bring in more families, I think, is just not going to happen in the near term. We needed to build about 177 houses per year. We aren't. And if you look at our birth rate, which is the real issue, is birth rate. Benton County is down to 1.1 births per child of bearing age. That is well below Oregon's 1.4. That's well below the United States 1.6. For anyone who doesn't know, you need 2.1 for replacement. So we're just not having enough kids. Again, I don't think that's something the school board needs to be talking about or trying to convince women to have more children. I don't think that's really our job. Well, our job is to look at the students we have. Sami mentioned 8,000 students. We're below 6,000 for the first time in a long time, and we're not going back above it. We're headed down to 5,000. That's what's baked into our numbers. Our current district, and I don't have a graph, but if you imagine, we have a lot more seniors than we do kindergartners. So as we go through, we're just automatically going to lose hundreds and hundreds of kids every year. So the response to that is you have to consolidate your resources. I agree with Charlotte. Our family's also considering leaving because of the lack of academic excellence. Right now, only 20% of Corvallis seniors are graduating at grade level for math in an engineering town. That's completely, we can shake our heads, but that's what the data shows on great schools, and that's what the data shows from our own place. And in response to this, are we really taking care of those kids that need help? Well, over the summer, it was decided not to adjust FTEs to Title I schools. So Title I schools, where my kids go, have larger class sizes and less resources than the most affluent schools in the district. So are we doing something different than other districts? Yeah, we're not following the Title I laws. We're not following Student Success Act of 2018 from Oregon. We're not following Every Student Succeeds Act. We are not delivering on our promises to children. Dr. Noss, and last point I'll make, and I know this one time, when I approached him for an hour and I talked to Sami about this, talked to Dr. Noss about this issue about Title I schools not being big enough, Dr. Noss said clearly that they believe after 17 students, class size is irrelevant. I pushed hard on this and said, so you're saying a second grade class with 18 kids is no different than a second grade class with 30 kids. And he said, there is no statistically significant difference. Now, I don't believe that. I don't think our parents believe that. And if we're going to be fighting nature of what our own constituents believe, we're going to lose more people every single year. And we saw that last year. We lost 9.5% of kindergartners, 2% of all of our students, and 5% of our elementary kids. What's the future? We're failing our kids, we're failing our parents, and we're doing it at the cost of extremely high salaries and a reluctance to just do the responsible thing and consolidate our resources and do better for our kids.
Great, thank you. What I'd like to do before we move to the next question is to ask each of you in a minute or less to speak to at what point do you believe that we need to be closing a campus, and what considerations would go into that decision for you as a school board member? We'll go back to Charlotte and then to Sami and then Chris. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I think we need to look at redistricting or redrawing our boundary lines before we talk about closing schools. I think that should be something that's done as last resort, but I don't think that right now we're at that point.
Thank you. All right, Sami.
So I did ask that and requested formally on the school board meeting a few months ago, several months ago, probably before November. And the question was, what is the dotted line? Let's have a graph and let's have a red dotted line and see when enrollment goes down below that line. We need to start the conversation and start making those decisions. And the school district now is engaging in facilities review plan, where we need to really assess that. Just want to make sure, again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but the communication was shared with the public and the community that next year there's no closures planned and no reboundary plan for this coming year that will start in September. Nevertheless, with the projected enrollment declining and trending toward probably 5,000 somewhere at the end by the end of this decade, I would say the dotted line that I asked for is going to be crossed. And what that means, does it mean elementary, middle, or high? The question that I have is, what are the values of the community and what are the priorities of the community for educating our kids? And we need to be focused on the students, not the buildings. And I understand how really hard conversation that is. Having traveled across the nation and the states, boundary reviews and closures of schools are the hardest things volunteering school board members have to ever go through. I don't know, Helen, you served on the board. I'm not sure if you had to navigate that, but I know.
So, Sami, can you tell us the connection in your mind between redrawing the boundaries and closing a school?
Yes. So each one is a tool to a different problem, or could be the similar problem. Boundary review happens when you have elementary schools or middle schools having imbalance in the population enrollments where the boundary used to be, because where the growth in student population or decline in student population is. So you need to maintain the balance between the middle schools or the elementary schools or the high schools. So that's what we had to engage with in 2019, just before the pandemic. We engaged in a very hard conversation around whether middle school boundaries need to change. And we end up not having to do it. And because of how the pandemic happened and because of how the blip in the population, we were able to ride that blip. And now we don't have that. That's one way of looking at why boundary review is a solution for a certain problem, imbalance.
So
Now,
you're saying
closure,
so just quick, are you saying that the schools are balanced right now, so the need to rebalance no longer exists?
I
Is that what
cannot
the school board
I cannot
decided?
say that. I cannot say that yet. Sorry. What I would say, it is still on the table. Everything is still on the table, and we need to really assess it after we engage in the review of all of these
Okay.
things. Right now, for this next year, we are seeing declining enrollment. I don't have the data in front of me. Is there imbalance in the declining enrollment? But the fact of the matter, I did ask for this red line or dotted line. If we go below certain place, no boundary may solve the problem. Where is that going to be? That's going to be a tough question. We have to navigate it if we continue going there. I am not losing my optimism, though. I am not losing my optimism. We need to increase our capacity to welcome families to stay here.
Okay, so Chris, response from you.
Sure. I view this from a mathematical modeling perspective. My background's in science, astrophysics, math. So I look at this very much like a systems engineer kind of thing. And for me, the numbers are stark. If we closed Mountain View and Catherine Jones Harrison, so 2 elementary schools, we would still be 200 students lower than our cap over the last 5 and 10 years. So we are in a position where if we don't, we're below 70% efficient in elementary schools. If we don't close a school this year, we're going to have, as Cami, quoting Sami from last spring when we did the budget things, catastrophic cuts. And if you claim catastrophic cuts to a community that can move or can go to other schools, they're going to. And I ask, how big can the classrooms get? We've already heard that Dr. Noss thinks that after 17, it doesn't matter. Our elementary school, every grade, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th was capped all the way to 26 or 27. How much bigger can we get? We already cut half of our library, half of our art. They're talking, sorry, half of our library and half of our art. Yeah, they're talking about cutting even more music or something else. How many services can you cut and still claim you're being equitable? Moreover, Bethel Church is a little district, not far away, 45 minutes, very similar in size. They were responsible. They cut an elementary school. I've talked to them. I've interviewed some people there. They're extremely happy because they said no increases to class size, no cuts to art, no cuts to library. And that's retaining people. We're going to continue cutting and continue losing. If you cut, you're going to get more attrition. That's why they're planning on having such huge cuts. Well, how are you going to grow that back? There are no places for these people to move. Why are they? The math is stark. Once a family leaves, they are very unlikely to come back unless you do something much, much different. So I would close an elementary school immediately. I would close Catherine Jones Harrison. Sami's talked about having a community center. What a better location than Catherine Jones Harrison? If you look at the district of where that is, there are other schools, Bessie Coleman, Adams, Letitia Carson, and Garfield, that are very close to all of those places. And that school is high performing with very, very high, they're rich people. They're more rich than most of other schools. So in general, from an equity standpoint, those are the kids you would want to move. Okay. If you don't do this, how much bigger can the cuts get?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, we're going to move to the next question. This one is only 38% of Corvallis 3rd graders are reading at grade level. As a school board member, what policy priorities would you consider to address improved literacy outcomes? And are there other areas like math or civics or PE that you would seek to improve? And how, as a board member, would you go about doing that? So you have about 2 minutes, and I'll start with Sami on this one, and then Chris, and then Charlotte.
Thank you, Ellen, for the question. Reading at 3rd grade level is so crucial because if you can't read, you can't read the math problem, you can't communicate right, and you can't succeed beyond 3rd grade. So making sure students can catch up for that is so important. That's part of the work that the governor has invested in and continues to invest in early literacy programs that are earmarked to help teachers have professional developments about what's called now the science of reading, ensuring that students can read effectively and know how to read in a way that's not only fast, but comprehend what they're reading, ensuring that second language students read differently. People with different cognitive abilities and neurodiversities read differently, and meeting them where they are, understanding their needs is so critical for their success. That's where, as a school board, understanding why students are not catching up to be able to read on grade level and how can we support them is really important. And that's what we have been investing in. And we need to allocate those resources and track them in a way that supports our teachers to do that. One of the things that I am proud of is we have those facilities flexibility in terms of allowing the kids to have a breakout sessions in elementary school where the teacher can monitor them and see them and have someone who can set them aside and help them read and do some coaching one-on-one. All of these programs are really critical. Now, do they cost money? Absolutely. But are they critical? Absolutely, yes. And we need to advocate for those earmarked investments to help the students read and be able to graduate.
Thank you. All right, Chris, same question.
I agree with Sami that third grade reading is one of the biggest variables we should look at. The federal government has a third grade Read to Achieve program. So this is a nationally recognized thing. If you can't read by third grade, it's very hard to learn the other grades. Totally agree with that. Let's talk about what Corvallis did. In 2018, when we had to apply for the student investment account, which was created by the Student Success Act of 2018 of Oregon, it gave a ton of money to districts, but they had to write this really detailed application and say, what are you going to do with this money? Because we don't want to give you money and have it wasted. We want to make sure it's going to go towards kids reading and learning math. So we had to write with scientific evidence what we were going to do. What did we say? We're going to lower class sizes in K through 3. We're going to fund library and we're going to fund art. But somehow over the last 2 or 3 years, when that funding application changed and it became one big bucket, the district decided to go away from those priorities. We decided, as the deputy finance director, or what her name is, the finance director, Lauren, said to me in the interview, we're shooting for every kid to be reading at 100% at kindergarten level. And then we don't have to worry about first, second, and third grade. And of course, noble goal. I want every kid reading 100% at kindergarten, but they're not yet. And if you're going to pull away the resources for the kids in first, second, and third going forward, if you're going to pull away their library, Sami just talked about wanting them to see themselves and wanting to be able to see themselves in the books. Well, how does that happen? By having a librarian there all day. They want to have breakout sessions like STEAM sessions and other things where they can grow. Well, when you close the library for half the day, you lose a lot of that access. So I think the words and the rhetoric are correct, but the actions and the results have not fallen through.
Great. Thank you. All right, Charlotte.
Yeah, so I'm under the impression that we actually have higher numbers than 38% of third graders not reading to grade level. I was under the impression it was more like 50%. And this is a huge concern for me. I believe that reading early on is the foundation all children need for a successful education. It's something that I personally struggled with as a youth. And so I know that learning to read early on allows you to be a successful student throughout your whole career as a student. And I agree, the science of reading is also a known policy or a known curriculum that has a foundation for the way reading is taught. So that's great. But I think that Corvallis needs to focus on building that foundation from preschool, kindergarten ages and on. We need to be teaching phonics. We need to be teaching sounds. We need to be talking with kids, teaching kids how to speak, building that base so that they can just grow and build off of it. I don't think we can expect kids to just all of a sudden know how to read. And I think what the Corvallis School District has done in some of their more recent policy changes is we teach to the lowest common denominator. We don't allow students who are advanced to flourish, and we don't have special programs that cater. I mean, we do have special programs, but we don't break off kids for their knowledge base. And I think that is detrimental in providing a solid foundation that kids can grow off of.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Sami, did you want to comment on that?
I do. I really appreciate this conversation. I think it's really important and it will help us advance forward. The challenge that we have is you want to put resources where they are needed the most. I am of the opinion and the belief that individualized learning is so critical for student success. And it is the law for our students who are navigating a disability, where they have to have individualized education plan. And I believe every student needs to receive the resources and the support that they need to advance. And that's where we really need to make sure that we are investing in students' success. I just want to clarify something that was mentioned across the conversation so far, and I want to correct the record that Corvallis School District is abiding by the law, is abiding by the requirements of the Student Success Act, Students Investment Accounts, and we are in compliance. So there is no question about that. We have fulfilled the requirements of those fundings and funding streams. And the governor now is even asking more of school districts to provide reports to show that they're compliant. And we are supporting those efforts. That's whatever you want. We're going to show you the receipts of what we're doing.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna let Chris respond. We need to kind of keep it moving. Did you have one more quick point, Sami? Or?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Super quick.
Okay.
When you graduate Corvallis High School or Crescent Valley or College Health Alternative Program, you graduate with all the requirements, and we are presented with the students achieving all the requirements set by the Corvallis School Districts and the state of Oregon to graduate. We heard that that's not true. It is just true. There's like facts and not facts. This is a fact. So just want to make sure we set the expectation for the community, for our students. When you graduate, you earned it, and you have checked that requirements. They are at level that they can navigate the world.
Thank you. Chris, did you have a response to that?
I just want to say on the legality issue, one thing that was notable was that they increased the legal budget significantly, I think anticipating IEP violation lawsuits. The idea of individualized education plans are very important, but the idea that IEPs are somehow not related to class size or not related to library access. If a kid has an IEP, they don't go to some special school that does more library time. They got their library cut too. They also lost all those parents. They have an increased class sizes, and the research shows that this does not help those children at all. It actually makes those things worse and harder to deal with. And then on the idea of we have not yet broken the law, the reason that I got a meeting with the superintendent is I asked an open records request for an audit of the Student Success Act, Student Investment Account money. And the answer was they could not provide me one. So I'm not completely certain. If you can explain to me logically how Title I schools have larger class sizes than your most affluent schools, despite having 2 additional funding sources, I don't know how legally that could be defended.
Great, thank you. Charlotte, did you want to weigh in on anything to get some equal time here?
Having troubles with that. Yeah, just on the basis of like IEPs, I have been told by multiple teachers that the school district really wants to manage the number of kids on IEPs. And this is due to government or state funding being limited after a certain percentage of kids are on IEPs. Right there, that's telling me that we're not actually providing education for kids. We're worrying about numbers and statistics, and that is concerning.
Right. All right. We're going to need to move on to the next question. And this is going to be a really quick one. So for each of you, do you believe that striking public employees should receive unemployment insurance payments during future strikes? If so, why? If not, why not? And we are starting with Chris on this one.
So I would not exclude them from this policy. And in general, personally, I am extremely pro-labor. I think if you look at the wealth pump that has been sucking money from the poor working class to the rich, private equity kind of overlords, there's no question that it's an imbalance, and anything that could give labor a chance for an equal fight, I would support. And the idea, again, a lot of people misunderstood this. It's not saying they just get paid. The union has to say, we're going on strike now. It has to be approved. And then they're only able to get unemployment, which is still a small percentage of their actual pay. So it's not some blank check. And I think the small protection it offers should be protected. Yes.
Great. Thank you. Charlotte, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I think that, yes, teachers and school district employees should be provided with some sort of income during strikes. I think that when you get to a level of having a strike, there's something broken, and that's what should be focused on. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Sami.
Helen, I'm going to answer the question right away, straight to the point, and then add to it. How about that?
Great.
Sure. Now, let me just give you a disclosure. I'm a union person. I'm proud to be the only one in this conversation who's endorsed by both, and the only associations and unions representing employees in the school district. I'm endorsed by OCA Chapter 2, representing classified staff, and CEA, Corvallis Education Association, representing teachers. I am the board member who has been delegated to negotiate, to attend the negotiations where the administration negotiates with the teachers and classified staff. And we successfully made sure that their pay is fair, and very hard conversations. And I want to give you a very important disclosure about the law that you're referring to. Now it's passed from one chamber to another. I suspect it is, I believe in the House now. I suspect it will pass. And if it passes, it's going to be the only law in the nation that allows public employees, striking public employees, to receive insurance pay, because that law applies in New Jersey and New York, if I'm not mistaken. But those two states where that laws apply, public employees don't have the same striking privileges and rights that we have here in Oregon, which we need to continue to maintain and support, and I support. And I want to say, if that dynamic changes where that insurance during strike is offered, are we going to see more strikes? And how is that going to inform the budget? And how is that going to put the responsibility on both parties, the negotiating union and the administration, to reach a fair deal that is also sustainable and prevents cuts in the future? Is going to be a really, really hard conversation. But as someone who believes in labor and their right to strike, I believe they should not be punished for deciding to take that really last resort of striking to ensure that they can serve our children and communities the best. So while I say sure, I really caution about the consequences of it. And I'm going to support a way for us to have sustainable way of doing it. And that's my answer.
Great, thank you. Okay, so next question. So as school board members, you are representing the public and your constituents. So there's really a conversation that needs to be had around prioritizing educational opportunities and addressing some of the outcomes that we've been talking about earlier. So what will you plan to do to connect more broadly with community members, both community members that have kids and members that don't have children? So if you could take about a minute, and we will start with Charlotte on this question.
So I think connecting with our community is probably one of my strongest suits. And as a candidate in this race, I grew up in Corvallis. I am completely connected to lots of different communities across our school district. And I, sorry, lost my train of thought. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. It's basically, how are you going to connect with the community as you guys work on prioritization?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I think just talking to people is the biggest thing. Right now, I feel like as a parent of kids in the school district, there's this disconnect between the school district and the schools and the community. And as a parent, I feel like all the parents in our community are trying to send a message to the school district, and it's not being heard. I think talking, having open communication, going out into the community and just trying to get a really honest read on what is going on, how people feel, is essential to providing our stakeholders with a quality education. And as a school board member, like, that is your job. You need to represent the community. And I don't necessarily feel that the current school board members are diverse in representing the community.
Great. So in just summary, if you could briefly say, what is that message that you're hearing that you think the school board is not hearing today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of what I keep saying, like, we are failing at academics. We're failing at providing individual learning options for kids that have different learning needs. We have a budget shortfall, and we have students that are leaving the school district to go to other schooling options outside of the district, which is greatly affecting our budget. There is a lot of hostility towards the school district, which is really sad. And I just think that communication needs to be better. The school district and the school board need to listen and respond to the community.
Great, thanks. Okay, Sami, same question.
4 years ago, there was a gentleman who ran against me and said something that's I heard again. And so he decided to run not for an open seat, but to run against me. And he said, I'm running because I believe people from religious minorities are from different religious backgrounds are not well represented on the school board. And I would look at the screen and I was like, what are you talking about? And why did you choose to run against someone who's a Muslim and say that exactly? So I really want to ask my colleague or pose this question. Is the Corvallis School Board not representing the diversity of our community? From what regard? Because I really take that to heart. I do have a lived experience, and that person mentioned religion, and we never do a religious test in the United States of America. And now I'm hearing diversity is not represented on the school board. What diversity we're talking about? We are the first time ever we have a majority minority school board in Corvallis since Corvallis became a city. We are a school district where every board member who I worked with since 2017 goes above and beyond and reach out to communities, not only in their neighborhood or in their circle, but also tell the school districts, let's audit the way we communicate. So in the past few years, we audited the way that we communicate, and our communication team now have leaned in on the parents and made sure the parents are on the same side of the same team. So really, the messaging of cynicism about our school districts is not going to help us move forward. We are on the same team. School board members are volunteering board members who are serving the community. And at the time of recording this message, I want to just share that this is Public Schools Volunteer Week. I want to invite people to volunteer, not only on the school board, in every capacity. The school district counts on you volunteering your time, leaning in of what's best for your children, and also what's best for the children of your neighborhood and community. That's what I have done so far. Every time there is an opening or a vacancy, I make sure that we announce that we're going to have coffees in every corner of the community. I'll continue.
Okay, we're gonna, yeah, Charlotte, did you want to respond to his comment?
Yeah.
And Chris, will go to you.
I just wanted to clarify that I'm not talking about diversity and race or religion. That's not what I was referring to. I was just referring to the board. From what I can tell, most of them are either part of the university system, or past teachers. And there's, from what I can tell, I don't believe there's any business owners. Diversity in background, I guess, is what I'm trying to say in board members. But I do want to say, Sami, I totally love your positivity. Like, that is great.
Great, thank you. All right, Chris, your turn.
Sure. So the question is, how would I engage parents more, I think, in the community and be more
and non-parents as well. Parents and non-community members.
Well, I believe as a board member, you get to be a liaison to a school. And I would push to try to be a liaison to all of the Title I elementary schools. I think one of the best times to get parents involved is when their children are starting to join the district, and there's a lot of opportunities. I personally try to volunteer as much as I can. I think last year I did 200 or 300 hours in the school. I'm on track to do that much or more this year. I spent all day there today. I'll spend all day there tomorrow. I try to get involved as I can and talk with the parents and find out what they're doing and what they're feeling. I agree with Charlotte that I'm hearing a lot of that same thing. And when we talk about diversity, I'm really glad Charlotte pointed that out, and I appreciate Sami bringing that up. Diversity is not just race, age, sex, gender. It is diversity of thought. And I've personally had to fight a lot of very diverse boards. I mean, people from the Brooklyn School and like the people that are kind of on the edge of the progressive movement. And I had to fight them on that their results were not matching their rhetoric. And a lot of times I feel like that is my diversity is I don't have any kind of political aspirations. I'm not trying to toe the line and say exactly what you're supposed to say to be a progressive or a liberal or a leftist or a rightist or a conservative. I don't care about that. I care about equity of results. Equity to me is not making a child feel better. And equity is a child doing as well as the other minorities or groups that we compare them to. To me, that is success, and we are failing. So to increase the communication, I've just talked about tonight with another PTA mom that she was on the board of a PTA group. I'm close to that, starting a PTA group of PTAs. Another thing I've done in other districts is have classroom parents. So not only have a PTA, but every classroom should have a parent tied to the school, that we have another channel of communication. Another thing is the board and the district has got to be more transparent. They said they were going to include us in the budget talks. They said they weren't going to do anything until the whole community could respond. Yet we find out there's tons of layoffs that have already been announced, dozens and dozens of layoffs, and they won't tell us. I called, I did try to do an open public records request to say, can you at least give me a number of FTEs per school so we can just get some kind of idea about what you're even doing to try to combat the narrative? No, we will not share that with you. Contacted my local principal, said, hey, I work a lot in school. I was able to try to help. Can you give me some information? No, Chris, we're not allowed to share anything with the public yet, but they're coming. We know they're coming. It got so bad, we got a parent square announcement before conferences to say, hey, I know you're worried about the future of the schools, but if you can, don't say anything to the teachers. They're already so stressed and morale's so low. That's our district. How can you say that we're not saying this? And then, Sami, if you need more information, go read CV's newspaper. The high school puts out a newspaper. The editor there has some really good articles about how the high school and the district are failing and collapsing. If that's the view of our high school students, of the editor of the paper, how in the world can we claim success? How can we say that we have diversity of thought if our own parents and our own students are saying, we want math back? We want to do high level math. My position is if we don't have math curriculum to accelerate our kids all the way into college, then we're failing them. If they're kids who've run out of math to do, that's not their fault, that's our fault. And equity is not limiting advancement or experience. It's allowing all of people to be able to achieve what they can achieve.
Great, thank you. All right, I need to keep moving because we are running behind. And I'm going to move to a question on legislation. So as a board member, what would you advocate for the state lawmakers to change or prioritize? And I'm going to ask you to speak to this in 1 minute. And we'll actually bounce back to Chris, and then we'll go to Charlotte and then to Sami.
Great. Yeah, so I'm planning on going April 30th with my children to the state Salem PTA, go talk with your legislature thing. I think the three things that we are really failing in Oregon are class size caps. States like Washington and many other states that do much better than us in general have caps on their class sizes. If you capped our class sizes, you couldn't be paying our superintendent more and refusing to close schools. They'd have to be making changes for the students. The other thing I talk about is length of our year. We have a 172-day year. Why do we think 8 days less than the rest of the country is going to do as well as everybody else? We should probably go to 180, maybe 185. From an equity standpoint, that gives kids more time in schools. There's just nothing against that. I'd also increase the day. Right now, last year, Sami and the board decided to cut the day. We're not going to open at 7:30. We're going to open at 7:45. So we're spending $1 million on breakfast, but we're going to give the kids 15 minutes for 350 kids to get to school on time and eat breakfast, even though tardyism and absenteeism is one of our biggest issues. Extend the day to 7 o'clock. Poor families need more time to drop off their kids, and poor kids need some time to eat breakfast. These are simple things that we could push from the legislature that are budget neutral. These are not, it's 2% of the budget for breakfast to pay for supervision. It's just insanity that we are so distracted on national issues, on other things, that we're not focusing on these very basic, simple details that can have huge impacts, and we can track them. in the 2018 thing, we were supposed to track the third grade reading achievement. We didn't, and as it fell, we didn't take action. That's the kind of stuff we have to do, and that's what I would try to get with my state representatives.
Great, thank you. All right, Charlotte, your turn.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are all great. Everything Chris said. I'd like to build on that. I think that I would like to see from a state level down a focus on early childhood education. I would love to see more preschool, free preschool for all kids. That's huge. I think that that would catapult kids into a successful life in education. I think that that would solve a lot of our problems with low reading numbers, low math numbers. I would like to see our food requirements, our food, the food that we feed children in schools is not healthy. I think that that contributes to kids' outbursts, emotional, social, behavioral issues that are propelled by sugary, unhealthy foods. And I think that's something that we can control as schools. And then I'm aware that there are a large number of reporting requirements for school districts to the state. And I understand that that makes it so that school districts have to have a high number of administrators to be able to produce these reports, which adds to expense that's not necessarily helping students learn. So I do know that we're working on changing some of that in the legislature right now, but I'd really like to see a focus on that as well.
Great, thank you. All right, Sami.
Helen, a clarifying question. Are we talking about this legislative session or overall any bill, anytime, long-term plan, legislative priorities?
Well, let's go with what, as a school board member, if you were elected and running next year, what priorities would you be pushing for?
Because we're not talking about the legislative session.
They're in the midst of it right now, and you have about a minute, so.
Okay. So I want to highlight really important stuff for this year, because as Chris mentioned, PTAs are engaging folks, and I actually am going to offer a workshop for the PTA conference, I believe this weekend, about advocating and connecting with school board members and collaborating. Chris, if you're going, we're going to be there as neighbors and advocates on the same side of it. I want to highlight House Bill 2140-849-3040-3149, and a package of special education bills, House Bill 2448, and also House Bill 2953. I said so many numbers. What all of them do is this: making sure the help that the students needs, get them where they need it most, and prioritizing our special education students to receive the support that they deserve. And to that point, I just want to end the minutes by saying, if your student needs to navigate special education, our school district is going to advocate for you. The resources are not going to be a limiting factor. We're going to fight every minute to make sure the resources are coming. And that's why we're legislatively making sure that resources are coming. And no matter how many students deserve the help and support, we're going to make sure that they get that support.
Great, thank you. All right, we need to keep moving. We're running out of time here. So one last quick question. How can the school district support economic development and encourage more business investment in our community, which would, of course, encourage more jobs? So we'll go to Sami, then Chris, and then Charlotte.
Helen, when I heard that we're not succeeding during this conversation, I want to share what I'm going to say here. I joined the school board shortly after 2016. 2016, Latinx students were graduating at 50%, 50%. Now this group is graduating over 85%. That is another 30 to 35 children graduating every year. If you're a dropout, you know what kind of future and challenges you're going to navigate. If you graduate high school, Your income is 800,000 more in your lifetime as a high school graduate over a dropout. So let's multiply those.
So if you could just tell me again in less than 30 seconds, how do you see kind of supporting economic development? So if you could get right to that in the next 20 seconds.
Every year, we invest in DLI, we invest in equity, we see the results. $28 million in those
in economic development.
Being able to be the plumber, the carpenter, the doctor, the engineer, making sure that every student, no matter their background, no matter their passion, have an opportunity. That's one leg of this tool.
Great, thank you. I got to stop you there, Sami.
I have two more though.
Okay, well, we'll come back around. So again, this is 1 minute. So Chris, in 1 minute, how do you see the school district supporting economic development and job growth?
I want to say first, I don't think that should ever be our primary goal. We're not just a finger of corporate, but it's important. And I think the things that we can leverage are, it's an engineering town. We have Oregon State University. They want to build a technology hub. We want to build more startup companies. Well, then we need like a STEM high school, or we need programs that are going to get those kids able to go right from there into those positions. When I was at University of North Carolina in the astrophysics department, we had kids from Durham coming from the school and high school working with us on research. I think we're missing that opportunity by not letting those kids really achieve at that level and work with them. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Also with the trades, and we just talked about plumbers and all those things. We have LBCC. We could maybe even get some other organizations involved and have pipelines right into journeyman level type apprenticeships, so that we can build a pipeline for these things. Once you have a pipeline of labor, that's when you can actually say to companies, hey, do you want to come invest? But I think on the housing side, that's going to be one of the biggest issues. And I think this would go, when you're talking to the city, you need to extend the urban growth boundary, because if you can't build more homes, you can't bring in more workers, you're not growing. And again, even with this Corvallis city growth, you have to look at 6,000 students went on campus and over the last 20 years. So our growth is actually majority students and a lot of retirees. So if we don't build these pipelines, increase our educational excellence while maintaining equity, then I think we're not going to be able to have business development. If I'm a business, why would I want to develop in Corvallis? And I think we have to break down those barriers and make it more accessible.
Great, thank you. All right, Charlotte.
So I think that public schools in any community are really the foundation of what makes a community strong. If you have a strong public school system, something that everybody's behind and believing in, that brings growth, it brings interest, it brings families to a community. So I think that I know this is a challenge because we're in this time of budget shortfalls, but I again think that if we provided a free preschool program, that would make Corvallis that much more affordable for families. It would be an incentive. It would be a huge benefit for young, new families to come to our community, which would in turn provide great economic stability. And I also think that if we can diversify some of the ways we teach students, teach kids, we have different schools with different teaching models, that allows for our school system to provide a good education to different kinds of learning needs, which would also drive people to our community.
Great, thank you. All right, so that is the first round of questions. We're going to move to what we now call the lightning round with Steve. So Steve, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Helen. So yeah, like Helen was saying, kind of lightning round, whereas Helen was somewhat generous with time, I am the opposite. You will be getting interrupted. You will be kept on track. There's a lot of listener questions. However, I'm going to take a moderator's prerogative and dovetail off of Helen's last question about job creation. The inverse of that is preparing students to be good citizens. Is an end in itself. Civics education. I'd like to understand in about 20 seconds, 30 seconds, the one or two things you would do to improve civics education in the community. I'm going to start with Sami, and I'm going to specifically point to the idea that you have folks graduating in our schools that don't understand how state law limits what the county can do or the city can do, how dollar allocations work between government entities, and don't know what the city does and what county versus what the county does. So you got a whole 20 seconds there, 30 seconds there, Sammy.
In addition to the required half credit in high school and civics, we already have invested in connecting the students into their government, making sure that they are empowered to voice their concerns, their passions, and their ideas. We have students analyzing bills and legislation, connecting with their legislatures, volunteering in ways that where they can understand how governments work, hands-on experience, being active and responsive. I'm endorsed by Next Up organization. That's
Okay,
actually
I'm gonna move over to Chris now. And thank you, Sammy. Couple things you would do, and I'm gonna be blunt. This idea that somebody doesn't know what the county does versus what the city does is discouraging for a newspaper person.
I think one, I'd have a much more open communication and engagement about what's going on. I think, for example, these layoffs, without even announcing a budget, not willing to share the document, even share who's getting cut or how many are getting cut. I think if you engage the community and you had open discussions, even at the school level, where parents could come and with their students have that discussion. My sons personally wanted to say things, and I've had to maybe not do that at the board meeting, Jack, but I think that would actually show them what engagement is. We've prevented that by not allowing our students or our parents to even know what's going on. And then I also focus on media and technology as far as curriculum goes. I think we are not at all educating our kids on how the internet works, how media works, how technology works, who owns the media, who owns the papers, who owns.
Got it. Okay, good. Charlotte.
Yeah, I think civic education is essential in building like strong, dynamic young adults. And I really think that teaching kids how they can contribute to both society and their roles and rights within the government is very important. I think that we should start teaching civics at a younger age, and I think it should be part of our curriculum through middle school and high school. It shouldn't just be one class. It should be something that's continued.
Great. Okay. And then Charlotte, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on the next question. Well, Helen did cover when it is that you think that there might be a discussion about school boundaries, consolidating schools, frankly, closing the school. This parent is wondering, in the past when these conversations have occurred, their view is that very often civic engagement around here has to do with the loudest voice winning. What would you do to assure that in a process like this, Charlotte, that the loudest voice does not necessarily win, but maybe the more thoughtful or quieter?
Yeah. I think that we just have to look at facts and numbers. We have to look at what makes sense. And I don't know if I necessarily agree. I mean, I agree in some cases, but I was part of a lot of discussions when we were talking about redrawing the boundaries. And there were a lot of parents that had some really loud voices, and the school district still had their opinions and plan.
Chris.
As was required in 2018, I would set priorities with a rubric, and then I would put in key performance indicators, KPIs if you want, and then track them, and then have to have follow-ups continuously on this. So that would be my method.
Sammy.
Steve, I have closed understanding to what it means not to be heard, and also maybe to be heard but not listened to. And I understand it. I lived it. Sometimes I continue to live it. And I have to say I have the privilege of having the voice of being elected official. And our school district is very mindful in making sure when we solicit inputs and information, we lean in with communities, linguistically, culturally, neighborhoods, different demographics, and make sure we look into the data, as my colleagues here mentioned, that we need to ensure that the school board is making decisions informed not only by what we hear at public comments or those who have the privilege of signing up for public comments at 6 or 7 p.m. in the evening of a Thursday.
Okay, I think that the audience probably gets what you're saying. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So that working families with young children and district employees specifically, what can the school district do to help these folks have affordable housing? A lot of stories about school district employees just cannot live in the area. They're commuting in. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start with Chris on this.
That's an extremely challenging issue because just legally, it's very hard to say subsidize housing for a small group of folks, especially with our funding issues. We don't even know how to fix our pool. I don't know how we're going to build houses for teachers. There's one local Boys and Girls Club, I believe, that did do this. They made an investment. I think that I don't have a quick, easy answer for this one. I think engaging the city with expanding the urban growth boundary would be a start.
Okay, great. And I'll go ahead and I'll move over to Charlotte.
Well, I think that we need to make sure we're paying our employees, our staff, especially classified staff, an actual decent living wage. I think that there shouldn't be such a discrepancy in classified wages versus administrative wages. I think that everybody plays a role in education that is equally important. And I also think that
wages then
Yeah.
would be one way for you to address that.
But I also think like Corvallis needs to work on making it more, we need to be affordable. We need to build more houses.
Okay, got it. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move over to Sami for to wrap up this question for this.
Steve, thank you, Steve. Helen knows how passionate I am about workforce housing. I would not say I'm the most passionate person because I know she is. Workforce housing and making sure that we have partnership with the city and the county, development and licensing. I don't want the size of the pipes prevent you from being able to have extra housing. And I think that's a real life example from what we're facing. Those challenges, that red tape that's making it harder to provide workforce housing is something I want us to ensure that our students, our families and working families, working
Sami, you go after red tape. It sounds like you might be interested. Am I hearing you right? You might be interested in employer assisted housing from the district.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, good. Moving on. So I'll actually start with you on this one, Sami. What safeguards would you put in place? And the questioner is not specific to protect student rights. I don't know precisely which rights. Questioner is not specific, but I think you get it. Sami, you got 30 seconds. Sami?
I always lean in on the conversation I had with a child at a traffic lights when he told me, if you give me the papers, I would go to school. I can't go to school. That was in the Middle East, in a country that did not give access to education for students who are undocumented. My brother texted me, now they have that right. And he knew that story still I carry in my
heart. What are you going to do to protect students here in Corvallis?
Our students who are undocumented in Corvallis, our students who are LGBTQ, trans, they will find their voice heard. They will make sure that their classified staff, teacher, and administration are trained to protect them and obey Oregon sanctuary laws and Oregon laws.
Okay, good. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move over to.
If I may.
No, I'm going to move to Chris. We got a lot of questions from audience here. Chris.
So student rights, there's a whole gambit of things we could be talking about here. Bottom line, it comes down to money. You need money to be able to provide the services we've all been talking about. If you care about Title I, if you care about IEPs, Section 504 for special needs, you need money to pay for the professionals to be there. That's why I think consolidation is absolutely necessary. I'm assuming that the Title I funds are not secure. I don't trust Donald Trump at all. So I
Okay.
don't think
Let
we
me go
should.
ahead and move over to Charlotte.
Yeah, it's hard to answer the question since it's so, there's so many different ways you could go with it. But I mean, I think that our school district does a good job at protecting student rights. We are very inclusive of all people. I think that right now it is extremely important to make sure that our school is focusing on protecting all children, especially those that are undocumented right now.
Okay, moving along. And actually, this dovetails with another question. If ICE comes calling or somebody from Homeland Security asking for documentation about a student and their family, do you believe the district should comply with that request? I'm going to go back and start with you, Charlotte. Yes or no?
Yep, I would say no. Do not. I think that it is the job of the school district to protect students.
Okay,
And
great. And then Sammy, yes or no?
Repeat the question, please.
If ICE were to come calling and wanted information on a student and their family, would you want the district to comply with that request?
Are they providing a judicial notice, a judicial subpoena?
I have no idea. Let's answer it in both ways. Have a judicial subpoena, don't have a judicial subpoena.
If they have a judicial subpoena, you have to comply with the request of the
And
specific.
if they don't,
However, we do not collect documentation information about our students. We don't ask them about their documentation status because of Supreme Court's ruling that protects the rights of every student to access education regardless of that documentation status. So we don't collect it, so we don't provide it. And if they don't have a judicial subpoena, they can see the door because we have sanctuary laws that says we cannot
okay.
cooperate with
I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna move over to Chris on this question.
Yeah, I would use every legal facility capability to fight them in every possible way. Even if they had a subpoena, I would attempt in every possible way to deny it because of FERPA laws or whatever privacy concerns we had, and try to get it stalled in the courts and try to protect those kids.
Okay, I think we got it. And then Chris, I'm gonna stick with you for a minute. This parent I guess, had some experiences with these two-grade blended classrooms.
Mhm.
They see them as a problem. And also believes the district hasn't been transparent about curriculum adjustments in those blended classrooms. Could you share your views on this? And I'm going to give you actually about 45 seconds on this.
Sure, it's an ironic question because my child is actually in one of those blended classrooms, a 2-3 classroom that was supposed to be majority third grade. Over the summer, like I was talking about, a bunch of students moved and it became a majority second grade class. And the decision was to basically teach at the second grade level. He's done the exact same curriculum, not the teacher's fault, not the school's fault. It was the district refused to move FTEs to give the necessary teachers. When I talked to Dr. Noss in person, he said, we'll at least get another half FTE in there for the literacy side so they can at least do a reading at third grade. That's never come to fruition. So I think, and to be clear about attrition, families left within days of seeing this because they understood like this isn't even a third grade classroom. And some school districts have already banned this. I think the data shows that they are not as effective for those students. And
Do you support a ban? Do you support a ban?
I do, especially in Title I schools, especially in Title I schools.
Okay. And then I'm going to move over to Charlotte Willer on this.
yeah, so I'm hearing a lot of talk about blended classrooms right now going forward. And I also agree. I don't think it's a good idea. I do not think that it allows for kids to flourish and succeed in their classes. And you have kids that are going to be grade lower, that are falling behind in a grade above, and they're not going to be challenged. So I do not think that they should.
Okay. So you'd like to go ahead and eliminate those out of the district?
Yes. However, I think we're going the other way.
Okay. Well, if you're a school board member, though, you can advocate against that. Yes, and that's what you would do.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's what the parents asking.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. And then
Do you want me to answer a question?
yeah, please.
Thank you, Steve. So I would love to listen more about how the blended classrooms are working. I know Muddy Creek has been using blended classrooms for a very long time, and parents and teachers and administration share results and good results about it. However, I'm hearing mixed reviews about it in Corvallis school districts. The lens that I will ask is not about the program. Is this the best use of our resources to help every student, given the resources that we have? And if it is, then let's continue. If it is not, then we need to really examine those practices. And I would not necessarily rush into a blanket answer. Let's eliminate them all from every school, every public charter school
Okay.
under Corvallis. We
Okay,
need to
good.
look at the data.
I definitely want to get this one asked because a couple of folks asked about it. So the one question comes off this way in the beginning, general. Are you willing to speak out against policies the district follows they say are equitable or enacted to improve equality? For example, removing tracked math. So I'm actually going to go ahead and reduce this question for the listener. Um, would you be willing to speak out against district policies if you feel that is the right thing to do? I'm going to give you about 15 seconds on that each. Sami, I'll just start with you. Yes or no? I'm willing to speak out against district policies if I feel it's the right thing to do.
We are the district. The school board is the policy maker, and we are a team of 7. So absolutely, if I disagree, and I disagree all the time, but we
Okay,
work
great.
as a team,
And then
we
if you
resolve
disagree with,
our.
and by extension, if you disagree with fellow board members, yes, no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We disagree and work
Okay,
as a
good.
team
And
and work
then
on
on the
resolutions.
second part of that question, tracked math.
Track math. I can't answer it in 10 seconds. What I can say, it is an important program that has been evaluated, and we're seeing how it is impacting students. I want us to continue.
Generally supported or not?
I would say definitely we need to examine how it is working. I am not a blanket supporter or blanket opposer. I'll tell you when it's working. I'll tell you the concerns
You
about it.
want to
I'll
get
tell
to work on evaluating it. Okay, great. I'm going to move over to Charlotte on that question. First, well, the two questions. First, as a board member, are you willing to come out against something that the board's doing? And then obviously what the administration of the district's doing. Yes, no.
Yes, yes. I think that that is one of the primary reasons that I decided to run for the school board. I really feel like we need more voices that will represent the community and stand up and
That's a substantive answer. Thank you. And then on the second part of that question, Charlotte, tracked math.
yeah, no, I do not support track math. It is I think it's failing.
That's a good direct answer,
Okay.
and I'm sure that our listener appreciates it. Okay, and then Chris Blacker, to you, speak out against board decisions, speak out against administration decisions when you think that's appropriate, yes or no?
Yes, I've already done that, and I continue to try to provide them data on how to improve their decision, not just disagree with them, but give them a solution and give them options.
Okay, and then on the second part of that, tracked math, yes or no?
Depending on how you define it, again, different states even talk about this differently, but I support full mathematic curriculum all the way to AP or BC level calculus.
Okay, I'm going to give
Uh,
each of you 30 seconds.
Steve, may I ask a question? Can we have
Nope.
another round?
Nope.
I want to make sure. Okay.
No, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. In your case, Sami, I will actually be calling you on you in a minute. I'm going to start with Charlotte. Charlotte, you're running for school board. Give me 30 seconds why folks should vote for you.
Yeah, so I am a longtime community member. I'm a parent. I am a business owner, and I care greatly for public school. I believe that a strong public education is the foundation for a great democracy, and I feel that it is our current situation in Corvallis with lack of support for our schools is playing into the narrative that's coming out of Washington, D.C., that we need to privatize education. And I want to ensure that that doesn't happen. I want to ensure that public schools are stronger than ever.
Thank you. Sami Al-Abdrabbuh.
There is only one school board member from Oregon representing us at the national level, fighting the federal administration at the National School Board Association with amicus briefs, telling the Supreme Court why we should protect public schools. I've been privileged to be supported by Corvallis and Oregon to represent us, represent 10 states and territories at the National School Board Association. I'm running to continue doing that. I'm running to continue supporting 197 school districts across Oregon as the president of Oregon School Board Association. I'm running to represent every student from our community in Corvallis to protect public schools. The question at hand, am I doing a good job representing the community and the voice locally and statewide? My opponents believe that I should be removed and they should represent the local community in all my capacities nationally and statewide. Not continue. I believe that.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Abdrabbuh. And now to Mr. Blacker.
Thank you very much. I respect Sami, and I think he's doing great work. And I think he should continue that work at the national level, at the Oregon state level. I think, unfortunately, Corvallis has needs here in the town that are not getting the priority or the perspective or the time and attention. I'm running to give those priorities, to make those things my priorities. Reading, math, time in school, and overall focus on the excellence of our academics with including equity the entire time. Worry less about how much we're paying administrators, how many buildings we have. I think Sami's done a great job, and I think he should continue that work beyond Corvallis. I think we need someone who does not want to go beyond Corvallis, who is a dad, a coach, a ref, a guy who's in the schools all the time and just wants these kids to have a better opportunity.
Christopher Blacker, Charlotte Willer, Sami Al-Abdrabbuh, thank you for your participation in this debate. Helen Higgins, thank you for co-moderating this evening. We also wish to thank the staff, volunteers, subscribers, donors, and sponsors that make these debates possible. And to you, the viewer, we appreciate your interest in the upcoming election, and we remind you that ballots need to be either dropped or postmarked by May 20.